Okay, I'm going to get started with this next topic. I decided to let you guys keep going in your break, even though we took an extra 10 minutes or so. It seems like you guys needed a little bit of a break after that big topic of what is Kamma. Get a chance to kind of talk with each other, rest a little bit. But now let's move into this next topic of what is merit, and then I'll talk about continued support on the path to enlightenment too, because our course is essentially starting to come to an end here. You know, we're kind of going to cap it off tomorrow with a tour to the temples and stuff, but we're kind of coming to a close here with these things. So I'm going to teach you about what is merit now that you understand the natural law of Kamma. Because merit is essentially wholesome Kamma, but it's a certain type of wholesome Kamma. So I'm going to explain this to you so you can understand it, because you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without understanding what merit is. You would need to practice merit in order to get to enlightenment. Okay. So as we go, remember, you guys can ask any and all questions that you like. So what merit is it's the readiness in taking action to frequently give something more than is strictly necessary, such as time, effort, energy, and resources, without any expectation of anything in return, that supports the continuation of the teachings of the Buddha. This is the way that the Buddha's teachings continue to flourish in the world, is that for countless generations, people have shared their time, effort, energy, and resources to share them. Because when they learned the teachings of the Buddha and they've been impactful for their own mind, they're like, oh, I would like these to be available for other people too. So people do things in order to help the teachings be available for other people. So for example, everything that you see around you is all a donation from somebody, right? Like the land that we're sitting on. At some time, this was owned by a Thai person, and they must have gotten a certain amount of benefit from the teachings of the Buddha. And they were like, you know what? I'd like other people to be able to experience this. Let me donate my land to build a temple. And then over a certain amount of time, they saved up money and resources to start building all the buildings. This temple is about 500 to 700 years old. So that many years ago, people understood the teachings to a certain degree, that they practiced generosity to produce merit to build all these buildings. And now this building that we're in, it was built in 1972 by the resources of whoever was around at that time. And then over time, this building has deteriorated because of impermanence. And now that we're here, we're taking care of it. You know, we're trying to update it and make it nice and make it nice for the next generation. There's a modern word for this. People call it pay it forward. If you've ever heard that term, where you're experiencing some benefit of something now that you didn't pay for and you didn't contribute to, and you're experiencing the benefit of what people did in the past. And now that you're experiencing that benefit, you're like, I would like other people to benefit from what I'm benefiting from. So let me do something that helps them to be able to benefit from it. So like even like this air conditioning. At one time, we used to sit in here and meditate, and I'd be sweating, just meditating. You could feel the sweat rolling down off your body. It was so hot in here. But at some point, there were people that said, hey, let's install some air conditioners, right? Let's donate some money for that, and let's install that. At one time, I had a really old rickety projector that you could barely see. It was very dim, and people were benefiting from the teachings. They were like, hey, let's get a new projector. And there were some students who came together, and they bought this projector so that new students would be able to learn and be able to understand the teachings through this new projector. Same thing with this sound system that I'm talking on. This is all donations from people that helped us to be able to share these teachings with you. So everything that you see around you, whether it's the meditation cushions or the carpet or the screen or the decorations, every single thing that you see is a donation from somebody at some point who benefited from the teachings and said, let me help to create an environment for other people to be able to learn and understand these teachings. So that's what's called merit. The Buddha taught to practice making offerings to individuals who are part of what's called the noble community. This is referred to as the Aryan Sangha. This word Aryan was actually adopted by the German Nazis as purity, but it was actually in use 2,500 years ago. They also adopted the swastika. That was actually in use during the lifetime of the Buddha too. So they adopted these wholesome things for the things that they were doing during Nazi time frame. But this word Aryan, what it means is like the noble community or the pure community. And it refers to anybody who's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment as an individual that you would be interested in making offerings to. Because when you're making offerings to someone in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, you're helping that individual to be able to get closer and closer to enlightenment. And if they're teaching, they're able to share the teachings. And you're able to come in contact with someone who has deep wisdom about the path to enlightenment. If you can imagine, during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were countless people who were learning and practicing his teachings. And there were a core group of people who were practicing them very closely and getting closer and closer to enlightenment or actually enlightened. But then there were people on the fringes who weren't really practicing so closely. And he would always make it very clear to say, hey, make sure you're making offerings to the people who are practicing closely, because he was interested in making sure that those were the things that were being supported. So that's what merit is where you're offering food, water, clothing, shelter, medical care, time, effort, energy, financial support, or resources to support this noble community. And it's the noble community that's responsible for sharing the teachings with others so that more and more people can get to enlightenment. And by supporting those individuals, it helps the teachings to come into the world more and more readily. So here's a diagram that I created to be able to help you understand this a bit more, because you're going to need to practice generosity in order to get to enlightenment. You're going to need to practice generosity in lots of different places. You can practice generosity where when you walk into the store and you're getting ready to hold the door, or you're getting ready to go in the door, you might decide to hold the door for people behind you. This is generosity, right? This is a certain type of generosity. But you got to be sure you're doing that without any expectation of anything in return. Because if you're standing there holding the door, expecting someone to say thank you, and they don't say thank you, you'll get agitated. You'll get frustrated and annoyed. So you can't have any expectation of anything in return, including a thank you. So this is generosity. But there's also generosity directed towards the continued sharing of the teachings of the Buddha. And when you're practicing generosity, it's training your mind to let go and eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So whenever you're practicing generosity, which is the giving and sharing of more than is strictly required without any expectation of anything in return, that's your time, effort, energy, and resources. That's generosity. But when you ask yourself, did this offering support a teacher to continue the sharing of the teachings of the Buddha to help people attain enlightenment? If the answer is no, then okay, you're practicing generosity and you're experiencing these wholesome results. You're experiencing the elimination of craving, desire, attachment, and you are generating this wholesome Kamma to progress closer and closer to enlightenment by eliminating any selfishness. So you're experiencing those benefits. But if your practice of generosity is to support a teacher or a temple or something like this to continue the teachings of the Buddha, and the answer is yes, well, you're still getting those two benefits. You're eliminating craving, desire, attachment from your mind because you're practicing generosity, and you're also generating wholesome results in your progress towards the attainment of enlightenment because you're eliminating selfishness. But you're also experiencing this benefit, that you're helping others gain access to the teachings of the Buddha so that the teachings can continually be available to all beings. This is how the world becomes a more peaceful, loving, kind, and gentle society, is that we make these teachings available for others. If we didn't do that, then these teachings wouldn't be available for others. And if you didn't practice some level of generosity, you wouldn't be able to actually get to enlightenment because your mind's still selfish and holding on to things very tightly. So if your answer was yes here, then not only are you getting all these benefits, but that's what we refer to as merit, is that you're helping the continuation of the teachings of the Buddha. So there's just general generosity, which you're going to need to practice with your mom, your dad, your brothers, your sisters, your neighbors, your fellow community members, people you don't even know, you never met before. You'll practice generosity at different times, and that's going to help you. But then whenever you're directing your support to the continuation of the teachings of the Buddha, that's what's referred to as merit. Okay, so now these are some words of the Buddha, and I'm going to be using a lot of the words of the Buddha here to help you with this topic. This is the words of the Buddha talking about merit. I'll read this one to you. It's titled, "An Unsurpassed Field of Merit for the World." Monks, these 8 people are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. What 8? The stream enterer, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of stream entry, the once returner, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of once returning, the non-returner, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of non-returning, the arahant, the one practicing for the realization of the fruit of arahantship. These 8 persons, monks, are worthy of gifts, worthy of hospitality, worthy of offerings, worthy of reverential salutation, an unsurpassed field of merit for the world. So what he's talking about here is anyone who's in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. If you think back to Monday, when I talked about stream entry, once returner, non-returner, and arahant, that's the 4 stages of enlightenment. And then someone who's practicing to attain that means that they're not quite there yet, but they're on their way to it. So the Buddha is saying anyone who's practicing deeply, these are the people that you would like to support, because that means you're going to be coming in contact with someone who has deep wisdom, and it's going to be able to help you to be able to get closer and closer to enlightenment. So he's saying these are the 8 types of persons that you would like to support. Right? You're not looking to support that ordained practitioner who's standing on the street corner, smoking a cigarette, hitting dogs, gambling, stuff like that. They're not practicing the teachings closely, right? You would like to look at, without judgment, you would like to look at someone's practice and decide whether this is an individual that you would like to support. Are they practicing the teachings? Do you see love and kindness? Do you see compassion? Do you see them being generous? Do they offer the teachings and help other people to learn? Are they practicing right speech? Are they practicing right action? Are they practicing, these other teachings? Is their mind clear and concentrated? Do they speak in a focused way, or is their mind muddled and concentrated or lacking concentration? Those are the things that the Buddha taught you to look at, because you might have difficulties to discern whether someone's in one of these 4 stages of enlightenment or not, because you're just getting familiar with that. But what the Buddha taught you to do is look at the quality of somebody's mind. If they're muddle-minded and they're lacking concentration, he's saying, these people aren't practicing the teachings very well. But if somebody's mind is very clear and very focused and very concentrated, that means that they're moving through these stages of enlightenment, and those are the individuals that he encouraged you to support. So he's giving you the detail of that here, but then in other teachings, he gives you kind of like a summary way to look at it. It's just look at the quality of their mind and whether it's muddled or whether it's concentrated and focused. So then he goes on here. He says, the 4 practicing the way and the 4 established in the fruit. This is the upright community, composed in wisdom, in virtuous behavior. So what he's talking about here is that during his lifetime, you might think that he's like the only teacher teaching. Because if you were alive during the lifetime of a Buddha, you'd probably like to learn from that person. No hands, no questions about it. If there's a Buddha and you know that that person's a Buddha, let me learn from that person. But not everybody knew that he was a Buddha, right? Because not everyone knew what a Buddha was. So there were other teachers in the world that were teaching during his lifetime, and they were learning and they were sharing things that they thought led to enlightenment. But the Buddha knew it was his teachings that led to enlightenment. So he referred to his community as the upright community, the community that was composed of wisdom and virtuous behavior. And he's saying, hey, this is the community you should support. Then he says, for people intent on sacrifice, for living beings seeking merit, making merit that ripens in the acquisitions, what is given to the community bears great fruit. What he's saying here is making offerings or creating merit that ripens in the acquisitions. What he's saying is that by you coming together with someone in one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, or someone who's practicing for one of the 4 stages of enlightenment, you're now going to be able to, yes, share your gifts and practice generosity, but you're going to be able to receive wisdom that ripens in you getting to one of the 4 stages of enlightenment. That's the acquisitions. It ripens in the acquisitions of you acquiring one of these mental states of the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th stage of enlightenment. That's what he's talking about, is that by you giving gifts to individuals who are in one of those 4 stages, you have the opportunity to cultivate wisdom, and now you can acquire one of these 4 stages of enlightenment. Then he says, what is given to the community bears great fruit. What he's talking about here is that anytime you're making offerings to a teacher, you should notice that they use a small portion of that for their own needs, like their water, clothing, shelter, medical care, things like this. But you should notice that there's things coming back to the community. You should notice that there's meditation cushions and classes and courses and retreats and a comfortable environment to learn in, and the opportunity to learn and grow, resources like books and learning aids and things like this. You should notice these kinds of things that are coming back to the community. If you're seeing somebody that's receiving offerings and they're just putting it in their pocket and they're not sharing it themselves by letting it produce benefits for the community, this isn't the type of individual that you would be interested to support. So if you've been in environments where people in these kinds of traditions are like flying around in private airplanes, they're buying mansions, they're buying Rolex watches, they're driving around in Rolls Royces, that's not the kind of individual that you'd be interested in supporting. That's not what the Buddha taught. And there was actually one person who was doing that here in Thailand several years ago. There was an ordained practitioner who was using money to fly around in private airplanes, to buy Gucci sunglasses and Fendi handbags and all these kinds of things. The Thai people found out about it and they pursued him. They were interested in arresting him, and he actually fled and went to America. And when he went to America, they put out an Interpol warrant, and they had the American police arrest him in America, and they extradited him and brought him back here for fraud, that he was using the money of the temple to be able to support this lavish lifestyle. He went through the court system, he was found guilty, and he was sentenced to 20 years in prison for this. Right? So Thai people take this very seriously. If you're a teacher like here, and you're using money for your own personal gain, they're going to make sure that you know that that's unwise, and you're going to experience the unwholesome Kamma as part of that. So you can rest assured that anything that anybody might provide here as a donation, if you've done that, I thank you for your support. I thank you for what you do to support what I do here. I'm using it to be able to help you guys. Of course, I'm using a certain portion of it for my own life to be able to support my life. Because I need to sustain my life somehow. I don't have a career anymore. I let all that go and now fully sharing the teachings of the Buddha. But you should see that there's things that are coming back to you in terms of classes, courses, and retreats, the ability to learn, ability to sit down and have private conversations, all the different resources that you have available to you. You should see those things coming to you. And classes and courses and retreats will always be available at no cost. That's the way that the Buddha taught us to do this. Because if I put a price tag on my classes, right away, the people who are disadvantaged, they wouldn't be able to access these teachings. And the very people that need them the most are the people that are struggling in the world the most. So as soon as I put a price tag on the teachings, that allows only the people who can afford it to be able to take the classes and courses and retreats. So that means those disadvantaged beings would never be able to get access to the teachings, and they would just be stuck, right? And then also, if a teacher puts a price tag on their teachings, now that students can't practice generosity, right? They need to be able to practice generosity to be able to get to enlightenment. So a teacher who understands the path to enlightenment and that their students are going to need to practice generosity, they wouldn't put a price tag on their teachings, because as soon as they do, it blocks this disadvantaged group of people from being able to get access to the teachings, and it hinders their students from practicing generosity to be able to support the teachings. So anybody who's enlightened would have loving kindness and compassion for the entire world and teach in such a way that their courses and retreats and resources and all this stuff is available at no cost. And then if somebody would like to practice generosity, they can. And the teacher should never have an expectation that their students will practice generosity. There shouldn't be any expectation from the teacher of that whatsoever. They should just give and share the teachings regardless of whether somebody makes an offering or not. So you guys are always welcome to come here and learn, or anywhere else that I am in the world teaching. And there's never going to be a price tag. There's never any expectation of anything from you whatsoever. So even when I travel, like I'm getting ready to go to Mexico, I'll be in California. When we organize these things, I organize it in such a way that the person who's hosting me to teach, that it's being done at no cost. So even when I travel, there's somebody who supported me to be able to travel, and now the course is still being offered at no cost. So no matter where I'm teaching, you'll always find that it's available at no cost, even personal guidance, one-on-one. So this is what the Buddha taught in terms of how to practice merit and who to practice it with. And I've got some more to share with you on this too. here's some teachings around merit to help you understand more, is that what merit is it's a practice of generosity that helps a practitioner eliminate their craving, desire, attachment, which is essentially eliminating the cause of discontentedness and the cause of rebirth. So that's what you're working to do with practicing generosity is, yes, you're supporting the teachings that come into the world, but you're also improving the condition of your mind. You're eliminating what the Buddha refers to as the stain of selfishness. He refers to this as a stain, that if you're selfish, it's like a pollution, it's a stain in the mind. So that's what you're working to eliminate. As you develop more and more confidence in the Buddha, the teachings, and the community, and you start eliminating more and more of your doubt, you'll get to a point where you'll be interested in supporting these teachings for other people because you'll have seen the progress to your own mind and you're like, wow, I'd like to make this available for other people. And then one thing about merit is that it can't be transferred to other people. You'll see this misunderstanding here in Thailand, that if you go to a temple and you make an offering to an ordained practitioner, they might ask you to get this little urn of water in this little bowl. And then after you make your offering, they have you pour that water out and they chant while you're pouring this water out. And their thinking is that you're transferring whatever good deeds you did to your dead relatives or to somebody else. This isn't actually possible. Remember, merit is wholesome Kamma. And if you think back to what the Buddha taught you about the natural law of Kamma, is only you can generate merit for yourself or generate Kamma for yourself. So you can't produce merit for other people. And if you understand the benefit of merit, which is improving the condition of your mind, you can't transfer that to somebody else. So this is a big misunderstanding that you see in the world here, particularly in Thailand. They'll do this rite or ritual or ceremony where you're pouring out this little bit of water and they think you're transferring your merit to other people. But this isn't actually true. You can't transfer the benefits of your reduced craving to your dead relatives. And what this actually promotes is like mom or dad or uncles, during their life, they might be using drugs or alcohol, doing a bunch of all these unwholesome things. And they're like, you know what? When I die, my kids will take care of this. They're going to transfer me a bunch of merit and I'll be good to go. It's kind of like transferring money in a bank account, right? You can't do that. That's not the way these teachings work. It's all about your decisions. So when you see those kinds of things, whether you choose to participate in them or not is your choice. In situations where I'm doing that, if a monk gestures to get one of those, I usually don't get it at this point. At other times in my life, I used to do it. But now with the wisdom that I have and the understanding that I have, I don't do this. I don't pour out this water because I know it promotes wrong view and it's not actually true. Okay, so that's a little bit more about merit. Here's more words from the Buddha about how to make offerings if you're ever interested in making offerings. He talks about purification of the offering, and he says this is the way that you purify your offering, is that for the donor, that the donor should be joyful before giving, that the donor should be calm and confident in the act of giving, and should be joyful after giving. Here he's using the pronoun she because there was a female that asked him this question. So he was referring to a she, but this is for she or he or any other non-gender. Essentially what he's doing is he's teaching you to protect your mind. That take some thought before you make an offering and think about it and decide whether or not this is wise of you. And be joyful about the offering that you're going to make. And then when you make the offering, be calm and confident when you're making your offering. And then afterwards, maintain your joy. Because if you get to the end of your offering and you're like, oh, I gave too much. I shouldn't have given so much. Like, wow, I don't have food for myself now. Like, why did I give all of that? Or if you get to the end of your offering, you're like, oh, I didn't give enough. I'm so stingy. I'm so selfish. Like, why did I do that? Like, I could have given so much more. Right? So you're not interested in that remorse. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you is don't have remorse, is think about your offering beforehand. Be joyful in what you're offering and be calm and confident while you're making that offering and be joyful afterwards. And this will protect your mind while you're making offerings. And then he says in terms of the person that you're making an offering to, the first one, he talks about the 4 stages of enlightenment. Here, he's wording it in a little bit different way. He's saying, if somebody is free of craving, anger, or ignorance, or they're practicing for the removal of craving, anger, and ignorance, that's the kind of person that you'd like to support. So if someone is free of craving, anger, and ignorance, they're enlightened. right? That's an enlightened being. If someone's practicing for the removal of this, then they would understand what craving, anger, and ignorance is. You would see them providing you guidance and suggestions on how to eliminate craving, anger, and ignorance. You will see them providing you the solutions because they themselves, they understand how to eliminate it. So they're going to be offering you the solutions of how to eliminate it too, right? So that's how you would look for somebody that is have the removal of craving, anger, and ignorance, or practicing to remove it, right? So I give you those examples of like people hitting dogs, gambling, and smoking and things like this, because these are things that I've seen, right? I've seen practitioners that are ordained that are smoking, hitting animals, gambling. I've even talked to drunk monks before that are intoxicated, right? And these aren't the kind of individuals that you're interested in supporting. The Buddha talks about this during his lifetime. He says that if he's a cow and he's walking on soft earth after it's rained, and he's leaving hoof prints in the earth, and there's a donkey behind him, and that donkey is putting its hooves in the same hoof prints as the cow, which the cow's the Buddha, and that donkey is thinking, I'm a cow, I'm a cow, I'm a cow, I'm a cow. Does that make the donkey a cow? No, it doesn't make the donkey a cow just because it's putting its hooves in the same prints and it thinks it's a cow, right? So you might have an ordained practitioner who is wearing an orange robe, shaving their hair, thinking, I'm an ordained practitioner, but they're not functioning that way. Their actions don't say that they're an ordained practitioner. So you can sometimes see teachers, not just ordained practitioners, but I'm not ordained. You could see people wearing white and shaving their hair. Just because they're wearing white and shaving their hair doesn't mean they're practicing the teachings closely. So you would like to look at the condition of someone's mind. Are they focused? Are they concentrated? Do they speak clearly? Do they understand the teachings? Are they helping others to understand the teachings? That's how you discern whether it'd be wise to make offerings to that person or not. Okay, so this is more from the Buddha. There's something called the way of practice that all of this boils down to. All the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, all the meditation training. This is a topic that will help you to understand what to do on a day-to-day basis to be able to get closer and closer to enlightenment. Of course, you need to know the detail of the Eightfold Path and all the other connected teachings to be able to get to enlightenment. But sometimes students ask, what should I be doing on a day-to-day basis to be able to get to enlightenment? Can you just boil it down? Well, this is the teachings of the Buddha of what's called the way of practice. He says on a day-to-day basis, every single day, what you should be doing is practicing generosity, improving your moral conduct, and then practicing meditation. Those are the 3 things that you'd like to do every day. And it's the Eightfold Path that is helping you learn how to do that. So you should be frequently practicing generosity. Be looking for ways to practice generosity. And it's not just giving money, right? There's other ways to practice generosity. And here, when I'm talking about generosity, I'm talking about all generosity. So you're walking down the street, somebody drops their wallet on the ground. You don't have to pick it up. You're not required to do that. But if you choose to pick it up and say, excuse me, ma'am, you dropped your wallet, that is generosity, right? Or you're going into a store and you see someone's behind you and you're holding the door. That's generosity. These things take 5 seconds, 10 seconds. You can be practicing generosity in the world. And this is going to train your mind to let go and eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So there's a certain amount of generosity that you'll direct in certain directions. And then there's a certain amount of generosity that you might direct to the teachings of the Buddha. And that's referred to as merit. And you're going to need to practice generosity frequently on a daily basis. The meditation that I've taught you, frequency is actually more important than duration, right? So if it's a matter of 2 meditations or 1 per day, maybe it's 1 meditation for 30 minutes or 2 for 15, I would suggest you go for the 2 for 15. That's going to be more impactful to your mind than the 1 for 30 minutes. And then just gradually expand that 15 minutes to more and more. Generosity is the same way. It's not the amount that is the determining factor of whether your mind gets to enlightenment or not. It's the frequency. You would like to regularly train the mind to let go, let go, let go, let go. So let's just say somebody felt they were attached to their money. Instead of giving like $500 once a year to a particular place, I would say give like $1 a day Like as you're going around, drop $1 in this donation box, $1 in that donation box, $1 in this donation box. That's going to train your mind to let go more frequently. Because if your mind's only letting go once a year for that $500 donation, it's not as impactful as if you do it every day, $1, right? Or say you were going to donate your time and you were going to donate, 12 hours on one particular day to an orphanage. I would suggest that if you could, go there weekly for an hour or 30 minutes or whatever it is, just share little by little by little by little. The frequency is going to be more important than the amount. So you can look at this when you're practicing your generosity. Then there's the moral conduct. That's the second thing that the Buddha teaches that you do on a day-to-day basis. This is right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Because as long as you have the unwholesome or the unwholesome moral conduct that you're making unwise decisions about, it's like that pipe that I was talking about that's bursting, and now it's continuing to spew water all over the place, or sewage all over the place. You'd like to stop it and cut off that pipe so it's not spewing sewage all over the room, right? And then clean up the room. Right? So that's what we are talking about today. So the sooner you shut down your unwholesome moral conduct, the better. Then the third thing you'd like to be doing on a daily basis is meditation. That's going to help you with your practice, right? So if it wasn't for generosity and practicing merit, you would never learn the moral conduct and you would never learn the meditation. So it's the generosity that's putting all of these things into place. And this is what you'd like to be doing on a day-to-day basis. It's called the way of practice. Okay, so here's some more from the words of the Buddha. This was very impactful when I saw this the first time. So when I'm talking about this topic, I usually share it with people. So here the title is called, If Beings Knew the Results of Giving and Sharing. The Buddha shares, monks, if beings knew, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they would not eat without having given, nor would the stain of selfishness obsess them and take root in their minds. Even if it were their last bite, their last mouthful, they would not eat without having shared it, if there were someone to share it with. But because beings do not know, as I know, the results of giving and sharing, they eat without having given, and the stain of selfishness obsesses them and takes root in their minds. What he's talking about here is that the results of giving and sharing is enlightenment. And he's saying if beings understood how peaceful and how joyful the mind is in the enlightened mental state, and they knew that it was generosity that leads to that, they would not eat without having shared it, if there was someone to share it with, right? But because beings don't know how peaceful and how joyful the enlightened mental state is, they don't understand the results of giving and sharing, then this selfishness obsesses their mind, right? So the Buddha is saying there isn't any situation where you wouldn't share if you understood how peaceful and joyful the enlightened mental state is, right? So you can be looking for ways to share in your day-to-day life. Here, the Buddha is talking about 5 benefits of giving, and I'll read this one to you as well. Monks, there are these 5 benefits of giving. What 5? 1 is dear and agreeable to many people. 2, wholesome persons go in large numbers to one or to you. 3, one acquires a wholesome reputation. 4, one is not deficient in householder's duties. 5, with the breakup of the body after death, one is reborn in a good destination, in a heavenly world. These are the 5 benefits of giving. By giving, one becomes dear. One follows the duty of the wholesome. The wholesome, mentally disciplined monks always go in large numbers to one. They teach one the teachings that dispels all discontentedness, having understood which, the taintless one here attains nibbana, or enlightenment. So I'm going to walk you through this. So the Buddha sharing these benefits here, this isn't something you should expect or something that you should want, right? Remember, the Buddha was a prince destined to become a king. He walked away from royal riches. So when he was teaching generosity, he wasn't teaching this in order to enrich himself. Sometimes that's what we see in the world, that someone might do that. That's not what the Buddha was doing. He was already rich. He walked away from it, right? He knew that that's not what led to peacefulness. So you shouldn't expect these things, you shouldn't want these things, but instead the Buddha is helping you see this natural law of Kamma, of cause and effect, that if you do practice generosity, these are the benefits that you're going to experience. That way, when they're occurring, you'll understand what the cause of them are. So if you understand the cause, then you'll understand when you're experiencing this certain effect, right? So when he's teaching all these 5 benefits, these aren't the only 5 benefits, but these are 5 benefits. The first 4 are pretty self-explanatory, but I'd like to talk about number 5 for a moment, because here you see him talking about rebirth in the heavenly realm, right? Anything that leads to enlightenment, if you fall short of that for any reason, there's the potential to be reborn in the heavenly realm. That's not the goal of the teachings of the Buddha, but that is a potential option. And being reborn in the heavenly realm is not a permanent existence. You're still in the cycle of rebirth. You still got to get out of the cycle of rebirth. You still got to get to enlightenment. And now you're not even in an ideal existence anymore. You're going to potentially be complacent when you're in that heavenly realm. So here, he's not suggesting to you that you should give in order to get reborn in heaven. That's not what he's doing. Instead, he's explaining to you the natural law of Kamma. He's saying, hey, if you practice generosity, here's the benefits of what you're going to experience. And one of those benefits that you're experiencing is the reduction of craving, desire, attachment in the mind. And whenever you're reducing craving, desire, attachment in the mind, it's going to promote more peace and more joy in your own mind. But then that's the type of being that is also reborn in the heavenly world. So he's just explaining to you true reality that, hey, if you have less craving in your mind, then there's the potential for you to be reborn in the heavenly world. But that's not the ultimate goal. He says it many times that the goal of this path is to eliminate your discontentedness and get to enlightenment in this life. It's not to be reborn. But he's just helping you to see what is the potential effects of having practiced generosity. And then notice here where he says how essentially the teachers and ordained practitioners, they're going to be around you because you're making those offerings to them. So then you're going to be able to learn and understand the teachings. And by learning and understanding the teachings, that's where he says they teach one the teachings that dispels all discontentedness, having understood which the taintless one here attains nibbana, or enlightenment. So by learning the teachings, it leads to the elimination of the pollutions in your mind, and it helps you to attain enlightenment. So that's how you do that, is by choosing to make offerings. You're going to be around individuals who understand the teachings, and now you can understand them as well. So that's what he's describing here. So just a couple more here, and then I'll open up to questions. This one is titled, Gifts of Teachings is Superior Than Gifts of Material Things. Monks, there are these 2 kinds of gifts, a gift of material things and a gift of the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of gifts, this is supreme, a gift of the teachings. There are these 2 kinds of sharing of material things and sharing of the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of sharing, this is supreme, sharing of the teachings. There are these 2 kinds of assistance with material things and assistance with the teachings. Of these 2 kinds of assistance, this is supreme, assistance with the teachings. Right? So what he's saying here is by assisting somebody else to get access to these teachings, that's the very best gift that you could give to anybody. You could give your mom and dad and brothers a Ferrari, a house, new clothes, new jewelry, but that pales in comparison to actually the gift of the teachings. So if I had 2 buttons here, and you could press this button, and your family and friends would stay angry and bitter and harsh the rest of their life, or you could press this one and they would become peaceful, which one would you press? The second one? Yeah, that's the one you would press, right? Well, unfortunately, we can't press a button. It'd be wonderful if we could, right? It'd be great if we could press a button and everyone would instantly become peaceful. But we can't do that. What we can do is we can make the teachings available for other people. And by making the teachings available is learning them and practicing them yourself, but also sharing them with others through potentially making offerings of merit to be able to make them available for others. And that's how you share the teachings at this point. For me, I'm sharing the teachings by teaching you guys and making all these resources available to you. But for you, maybe that's not what you're choosing to do. Maybe you're not going to choose to be a teacher. You might choose to be an enlightened business person, or an enlightened retired person, or an enlightened politician, or I've met enlightened enlightened taxi drivers before, right? So you can be enlightened and do anything and everything that you would like to do in the world. And potentially you might decide that you'd like to share the teachings in whichever way you would like to. So you can support the teachings. And that's one way to actually share them. Okay. And now this last one, to help you understand how all this comes together. This is titled Mutual Support Between Monks, Brahmins, and Householders. First of all, what a Brahmin is we might refer to this person as a Hindu priest. That during the lifetime of the Buddha, there were individuals who were born into a certain family, and this was like 15% of society. And these were called Brahmin. And it was thought that if you were born into this family, you were a holy person. You were a special person. And now, those people were responsible for doing rites and rituals and ceremonies and worship for everybody else. So all of us would go to the Brahmin and we would pay them money and they would do some ceremony for us and we were supposed to go home and our life would get better. Right? The Buddha saw this was going on and he knew that it wasn't working and this isn't how the world works. That's not the natural law of Kamma, and there's no way that a rite, ritual, ceremony, or worship is going to produce beneficial results in your life. You need to be able to cultivate wisdom and train your mind. That's what's going to produce results. But nonetheless, these Brahmin who were doing these rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, they would frequently be learning with the Buddha because they taught a little bit of moral conduct. Even though they were doing rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, they were still teaching a bit of moral conduct. So they would sometimes learn with the Buddha. So here the Buddha says to his monks, Brahmins and householders are very helpful to you. They provide you with the requisites of robes, alms food, lodgings, and medicines in time of sickness. And you monks are very helpful to Brahmins and householders as you teach them the teachings that are good in the beginning, the middle, and the end, with the correct meaning and wording. And you proclaim the spiritual life in its fulfillment in complete purity. Thus, monks, this spiritual life is lived with mutual support for the purpose of crossing the flood and making a complete end of discontentedness. Okay, so what he's talking about is this mutual support. His very close students, the ordained practitioners that were learning close with him, they were getting to enlightenment in large numbers, right? And these individuals, the way that the Buddha taught was to give up your worldly life and enter into this life of homelessness. And now, as you became more and more enlightened, you would share those teachings with other people to help them get to enlightenment. So the Buddha created this environment where they were essentially needing to share the teachings. And if they didn't share the teachings, they couldn't eat. They didn't have a place to sleep, right? So this incentivized them to actually share the teachings. Whereas if I was like doing some business on the side and I was like wheeling and dealing over here, I wouldn't have time to come in here and talk with you guys using these slides and do meditation with you and have personal guidance with you and stuff like that. So he taught us to give up our worldly life and enter into this life where we're sharing the teachings with others. And now, as your mind's becoming more and more enlightened as a teacher, you're going to be the very best person to be able to share teachings with others. Whereas if we're doing work on the side, we wouldn't be able to accomplish that. So he created this mutual support where students and people that are learning the teachings are supporting a certain teacher, and then that teacher is supporting the students so that the students can learn wisdom and then go out into the world and make wiser and wiser decisions and experience more and more improvement in their life. So this is the mutual support that he taught during his lifetime. Because if these people were getting to enlightenment and they're getting really peaceful and joyful and they're out there working, why would they ever share the teachings necessarily with other people, right? They're out there having a great life, doing whatever they're doing, getting enlightened. So he created an environment in which, these people that were getting to enlightenment, they wouldn't be able to eat if they didn't share the teachings. So this is the mutual support that he created. And it's been going on for 2,500 years. Okay? So I'll just pause here for a moment. This is all I have to share on this topic, but I'll just pause here for a moment. And once again, thank you guys for any generosity that you share with me, because it helps me to be able to help you. That's essentially what your generosity does. And it also helps me to help other people too. There's some students that study with me that they'll never probably be able to offer me anything necessarily. There's people like in remote villages in Africa that live off of $50 a month. And I'm still able to support this person and teach them and guide them and help them learn the path to enlightenment because I have the internet, they have the internet, and I can share teachings with them. There's people on remote islands off the coast of Africa that they write me emails sometimes and they say, David, we don't even have a library on our island, but we have the internet and I've been studying your books and I've been listening to your videos and your podcast and it's been very helpful for me, right? So I can help everybody and anybody this way because nowadays we have the internet. And people can choose to support me or not. It's up to them. But the people who do support me, it allows me to then be able to support them and support countless other people. So I have a lot of appreciation for anybody who helps me in even the slightest way. If you just sweep the temple floor, this is helping. Right? If you just pick up a little trash or take the trash out, you're helping. Anytime you're practicing generosity here, it's helping. So these temples, they don't belong to anybody. This isn't my classroom. It doesn't belong to me. This building was here before I was even born, right? So, and there'll be people here that are teaching after me as well. So Thailand, what they've done is they've created this national resource where all throughout the country, they have all these temples, this entire network. There's over 40,000 temples in Thailand. There's about a little over 30,000 that are actually working and functional, but there's a total of over 40,000. So over multiple generations, they've created this mental health network all around the country that is basically self-supported and self-funded, and it's based on donations. So if at any point somebody's struggling in life, they can go to a temple, try to find somebody like me and get help in their life. And this is all supported by people choosing that they would like to see these teachings be available for others. So I'd like to thank you for any kind of support that you may decide to give or that you have given, or even if you never choose to give to me, it's okay. I have no expectation of anything from you. I'm here to help you and support you no matter what it is that you do in life. I'm here to help you without any expectation of anything in return. But if you do decide to support me, I just would really like to share my appreciation because it does help me to be able to help you and countless other people around the world. Okay, so you guys have any questions on this topic? I saw you had a mic, Gary. No? Is something on? Okay. Helena has a question.
David, would you please explain once again what is exactly the correlation between generosity and getting rid of cravings?
So when you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, the mind tends to be selfish and it tends to hold on to things very tightly. The mind wants things to be self-satisfying. Mine. My clothes, my jewelry, my food, my money, mine. Because the mind has craving and is trying to get those pleasant feelings and it tries to accumulate all this stuff for yourself. So generosity is just the opposite, where you live open-handedly and you don't want anything from anybody and you realize this interconnectivity between all beings, that when I do something, I don't have to get something in return. I can just do it because I'm interested in seeing other people receive benefit from that thing. So that's training your mind to let go and not want things to be permanently satisfying or self-satisfying for yourself, that you're willing to give and share with others and realizing that your decisions are impacting other people and you can make wholesome decisions and wise decisions to share with other people, that things that you do in the world don't have to be satisfying and self-pleasing for yourself. Because with craving, that's what your mind's going to want to do. It's going to chase those pleasant feelings. You're going to want that pleasantness for yourself. But when you're practicing generosity, it's not about you. It's about giving to other people. And this will eliminate your selfishness and the craving because you're letting go and letting go and letting go and letting go.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And would you please come back to the previous slide?
Sure. This one?
No, the previous one, please. Okay, here. So number 4, one is not deficient in the householder's duties. What does it mean?
So if you have a lot of craving in your mind, you'll tend to not attend to the things in your home. Like your home won't be really well run. So if you have a lot of craving, then you're going to not take care of your home very well. But if you're eliminating your craving by practicing generosity, then you will take care of your home in a better way.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And would you please come back to the first slide from the Buddha? Yeah, thank you. So it seems to me like he refers to, for example, like the Arahant. It seems like he uses this word in two meanings, like the person who has actually attained the Arahantship and the person on the way to it. Am I right?
Yeah, so the person practicing for the realization of the fruit of Arahantship, that would be someone who's in the third stage of enlightenment and trying to get to the fourth stage of enlightenment.
So instead of a comma, there could be like an and here, right? Like the Arahant and the one practicing to be an Arahant.
Yes, exactly. Okay. These are the 8 individual people. So the stream enter is the one who's in the first stage of enlightenment. The one practicing for the realization of the fruit of stream entry, they're in like the jhanas, right? So it's the one before you get to the first stage.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Is there one of the volumes that talks more about generosity, like in more like depth or?
Yeah, there's a whole book, volume 13 is all about generosity. Okay. So even though it's volume 13, it doesn't say that it's the least important. It's actually very important. Without generosity, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment. But I just put it as volume 13, and other people did too, because it's helpful for you to learn all the teachings and start experiencing a lot of benefit. But you really need to be practicing generosity up front. So in volume 1, I introduce people to generosity. That's why here in a foundational class, I'm teaching you generosity because you need to get that underway. But then in terms of like the real in-depth teachings from the Buddha, it's volume 13. That whole book's dedicated to generosity.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so now let's talk about continued support, because our course is coming to an end here tomorrow, and you're going to need continued support. The course is going to end tomorrow with the tour. That's our kind of capstone for the course. So you're going to need support beyond this course, right? You're not going to be able to get to enlightenment in 5 days. Unfortunately, that's just not the way it works. All right. So if you'd like to have support beyond this course, there's books, audiobooks, videos, podcasts, and quizzes. They're all available from our website. You can access all of these. They're all available at no cost, right? The books, you can download them, you can take them and go print them. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, or you can order them on Amazon if you'd like. The audiobooks are free. The videos are free, the podcast. There's even little quizzes at the end of each chapter. You can click on a link and it'll take you to a quiz. And it's just to help you confirm that you learned what you need to learn. I don't actually look at the results. It emails you to help you understand what the results are. And it just helps you to confirm that you've learned what you need to learn. And you're going to see a few jokes in there too. So some people find it kind of comical when they're taking the quizzes, because I put a few little jokes in there, here and there. Then there's in-person and online classes, courses, and retreats. And again, these are available at no cost too. You can learn here at Chiang Mai, or as I travel around the world, you and your friends can study with me. And you can also learn online, because when I'm here, I'm live streaming, and in other places, potentially I'm live streaming as well. Then there's 2 ongoing programs. There's the group learning program, which you can do here, or you can do it online. It meets every Sunday and Wednesday at 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. So it's 9 a.m. here at the temple and 9 p.m. online. And when I'm teaching here at the temple at 9 a.m., I'm also live streaming it. So you could attend live if you like, or you could watch the replay if you can't make it live for any reason. So oftentimes students who take this program, this course that you guys are in, they will move into the group learning program after this, because that's like every Sunday, just a little bit of a trickle, like an hour and a half, 2 hours, a little trickle, a little bit of meditation, a little bit of learning, and you just kind of over a 7-month period, we go through this entire book. Every Sunday we go chapter by chapter. Okay. Then there's another ongoing program which meets each Saturday. This is 9 a.m. or 9 p.m. 9 a.m. here in live stream, 9 p.m. just the live stream. And what this does is this goes through books 2 through 13. over the course of a year and a half. And this program, this foundational program, you guys could even go into that one if you'd like. Once you have all the foundation like this, you could actually easily go into that program, or you could even take both. Some people who are retired, they do both at the same time. You can do that as well. So these are completely accessible and available to you either here in person or online. You can attend live, or you can watch the recordings. Then there's the ability to have personal discussions, because it's one thing to learn in a class or a course or retreat, but you're going to need to relate it to your individual issues and challenges that you're facing. So if we're in the same city together, you can just talk to me, or you can send me a message and say, hey, David, can we meet for lunch? Or hey, David, can we meet at the temple? Or hey, can we meet at this smoothie shop or this park? And the answer you're going to get from me is most likely yeah, or maybe just adjusting the time or date, whatever it is, but we'll find a time or date that we can meet. But even as I travel or you travel, you can schedule online too. If you go to the website, there's the ability for you to schedule online, and then we can meet online in Zoom one-on-one. So that's an option for you too. Then there's the Facebook group, where online I have this Facebook group with over 16,000 people, and they post questions in there and then I answer them. So it's kind of like an online classroom where other people aren't answering your questions. It's only me. Other people might ask follow-up questions on your post, but it's only me that's answering the questions. So this is a great way to learn, because not only can you post your questions in there, but you can read other people's questions. There's some people who come in there and they just read other people's questions and their answers, and that's how they learn. So feel free to jump in there and you can learn that way. So you can get help in one of four ways. You can ask questions in live classes. You can post in the Facebook group. You can send me a private message, or you can schedule personal guidance. These are the four different ways that you can get help, because it's your own independent journey. You're on this journey. You're not in a competition with anyone. You're not in a race with anybody. And you just gradually chart your course and plot your course and gradually learn from these different options that you have. Just kind of trickle it in. It's kind of like that high quality coffee, that drip pot. It tastes so much better than instant coffee. Right? So not that I recommend drinking coffee necessarily, but you understand the analogy, right? Like a drip coffee is going to be much better quality. So you would like to drip the teachings of the Buddha into your mind slowly but surely. And that's what all these events are for. Okay. So here's the two main ongoing programs, the group learning program, Sunday and Wednesday, 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. And those are both online, where the 9 a.m. is just here at the temple. Then the Pali Canon and English study group is Saturday, 9 a.m. and 9 p.m., with the 9 a.m. being here at the temple. And even as I travel, I've got my travel schedule arranged that I'm still going to be able to teach here. So I think you guys know next week I'm leaving to Mexico, but I'm still going to be teaching here, and I'm still going to be teaching online. So you guys can still come and learn even when I'm not here. You'll just see me on the screen rather than sitting here in the chair. Okay? All right. Any questions on any of that stuff? Yes, sir.
In that link, in those links, is there just a link to the meditations that we do, the chanting and the breathing? Can just listen to that?
Yeah, so on each one of these places where you see like the YouTube videos or the podcasts or in Facebook group, whenever I'm live streaming, there's going to be a chanting and meditation, and then there's going to be some class that I teach afterwards. But there's some that you can find where it's just chanting for like 2.5 minutes, so you can have that while you're doing it yourself, or it's just chanting and meditation.
By it on its own.
Just by itself. You can see that.
And the other question is, you said AM and PM, but did you repeat it or?
Yeah, it's 2 different classes. So I did this for different time zones because if I teach here at 9 a.m., like Europe, they're sleeping. Okay. And then at 9 p.m., Australia and China and all those places are sleeping. So I've organized in such a way that no matter what time zone you're in, there's a live class available for you. And then if you can't make the live class, there's a recording.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And if you're like in North America, Central America, or South America, that Sunday at 9 a.m. is actually going to be Saturday night. Saturday evening. And then the Sunday evening here is Sunday morning. So if you're in like Northern, Central, or South America, you actually have the option to take either class. And some people do both. I've seen some people do both, the 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. But, if you're just having one class, that's really all you need. But these are all options for you. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a break for lunch. It's 10 minutes after 12. Would you guys like to come back at 1:30? Make it easy? Yeah. Okay. So we'll see you back at 1:30. When we come back, I'm going to teach you guys how to integrate the teachings into your life. And then we're going to talk about the field trip, and we'll do a fun activity too. Okay. So have a great lunch, and we'll see you guys afterwards. Okay.